We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. We pay our deep respects to elders past, present and emerging.
The house with no bills came about when a client of mine said he had some land to sell. We went down the next weekend and the opportunity was there to build a house with a really good north orientation, to have views and solar access without any shade obstructions. Key decisions in 2007 were to create a house that was self-sufficient in water collection and supply. There are 3 tanks, one off the house, which is an 80,000 litre tank for 257 square metres of roof, and 2 other 20,000 litre tanks off the studio of 86 square metres and the garage of also 86 square metres. The form of the building came about with a number of key considerations. One was to have a gutter that was easy to maintain as far as bushfire maintenance was concerned. Another was to have the water collection easily controlled. And the third major thing was to incorporate the solar appliances into the architectural form making of the design. What that meant in the end was that there is one downpipe for 257 square metres of roof. This makes the water collection much easier than having a number of downpipe and drains around the house. In the 11 years that we've been here, the water has overflowed through the overflow system on 2 occasions when there were major rain events. Some people say they don't like box gutters, and I respond to that by saying the design of this house doesn't have a box gutter, it has a lap pool. Because it's not consistent with standard code designs for roof drainage, it has to be designed by a hydraulic engineer, but the small fee associated with that is well outweighed by the savings in the drainage system. Materials were selected on the basis of being low mileage supplies or from renewable supply. The weatherboards come from the radial timber milling supply in Gippsland. The natural edged weatherboards are efficient conversion of forest products into building materials. They come to the site in the form of a log with saw cuts in towards the centre of the log, and then the ends are cut off and the weatherboards come out of the log as little wedges with the edge of the trunk as the bottom of the weatherboard. Timber windows were supplied from the Windows Joinery in Geelong, and the floorboarding in the living rooms came from Timber Zoo. They are recycled timber, very hardwood, and are direct stuck onto the concrete. Although this isn't the absolute pure thermal design approach, possibly having tiles or polished concrete, the density of the timber is extremely high. The boards were re-milled out of an industrial building, so the timber is very dense and stable, and there's been no movement in that timber over the 11 years that they've been in place, even though they're exposed to sun and have the heated slab underneath them. The front door came about because the door size was something that I had intended to have. Pricing the door at the time from reputable door makers was a bit of a shock. So as we were building the house, we were travelling down from Melbourne each weekend, couldn't get past Bunnings without dropping in to buy something that we're going to need that weekend. And I noticed that flush panel doors were available for $66 each. The idea, therefore, was to combine 2 standard Bunnings doors and make them into one. And that then needed a cover strap on the joint between the 2 doors, which then was extrapolated into the grid that you can now see, which has a slightly Japanese feel about it. In summer, cross ventilation is achieved partly with the cool air coming in from the south side at low levels, but also via a flap beside the front door, which is adjacent to a water feature. The understanding there is that the cool air passes by the water feature through the hatch and then through the house and up through the hopper window exhaust points. The other thing about the house, which I hadn't realised, was that it is very efficient in terms of allocating functionality within the spaces. There is a 2 square metre passage between bed 3 and bed 2, which amounts to approximately 1% of the floor area. And what this means is you get much more facility within the design for the amount of construction cost allocated. Heating is taken care of by solar hydronic heating, where 60 evacuated tubes provide the first input into a hot water supply. and then the backup is a wood-fired boiler for which the fuel is sourced on site. The planting of trees, aided by land care, creates a microforestry program where the sequestering of carbon into that tree planting is way more than will ever be emitted by the small amount of fuel that is burned in the fire. In 2016, every stick of timber that was brought into the house was weighed on bathroom scales. The amount of timber ended up being 1,426 kilograms of timber. That equates in thermal energy to be equivalent to about 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity running through a heat pump hot water unit, which coincidentally that was exactly equal to the amount of oversupply of our PV system, which generates 4,500 kilowatt hours a year. The PV system is a 3 kilowatt system and it generates about 125% of the use of power in the house. The house is all electric apart from the wood-fired backup or the hot water. There are a full suite of electrical appliances: TV, coffee maker, toasters, sandwich presses, electric oven, and importantly, an induction cooktop. Also near the front door is an inlet point for the ventilation that runs through the cool cupboard. The cool cupboard is an adjunct to refrigeration for a house. The cool air enters from a cool shaded spot on the south side, passes through the cool cupboard, and then exhausts through a vent through the ceiling in the cool cupboard. What this does is reduce the amount of energy needed for standard refrigeration and is fine for storing vegetables, fruits, garlic, but also not too bad for wine either, and any bottles that you have in the cool cupboard add to the thermal mass performance of the house. The north side high-level windows are hopper sashes. That is that they hinge on the bottom edge and open out at the top. This provides the least resistance to air flowing out through windows so that they act as thermal chimneys in the evening on summer nights. The north window area of the living rooms and 2 bedrooms is significant. During midwinter, the intensity of sun on those windows can be 300 watts per square metre. Combined area of the windows in the bedroom, kitchen, dining and living area is 133 square metres. That is a ratio of 35% of the floor area. This is quite high, but it means that the heating potential of that 46.8 square metres of windows can easily be up to 12 kilowatts of direct heating. Even on overcast days, there's potentially 50 watts per square metre hitting that glass, and that gives us 2 kilowatts of heating even on the reasonably cloudy days. One of the other key things that was a consideration here is that this house was being built with the potential to be a retirement house for my partner Philippa and myself, and we wanted to be in a position where we didn't have large mortgage or to have large accounts for utilities. So the construction was also done to make it as cost effective as possible. To that end, the north side windows, apart from a couple of the large panes, are just single clear glass. The south side windows are a combination of double glazing and lowy coated single glazing. But the exercise was to show that cost effectiveness can be achieved for high performance building if the modelling of that design is carefully done. And the understanding is that a little bit of time in the design phase of houses is the money that's potentially best spent. The blinds that can be seen on the inside are closed at night in winter, and that stops the cold radiating off the glass, impacting the comfort of the occupants, while the heat, which was trapped into the slab during the day when the sun was falling on it, is still emitting back into the room. The garage is something that I'm quite proud of, as that was the first building on the site. I did quite a lot of work as well, where the joinery was largely flat pack assembly, and so it was an indication of how homeowners can in fact work with builders to increase the cost effectiveness by participating in doing work yourself. The garden has been created to turn a sheep paddock into something that is now, I think, reasonably attractive around the house, but it is also a productive garden with a vegetable patch that now includes 1 wicking bed. We discovered that nearby eucalypt trees are very good at taking water out of a vegetable garden and thrive to a degree more than some of the vegetables. The orchard on the west side of the house has a range of different trees: cherry, apricot, peach, quince, apple, pear. They have given us great production over the last couple of years now that the trees have reached a maturity. And it's very gratifying to have that bounty from your own property. We consider ourselves to have been extremely lucky to have had the opportunity to build this house. The design was put to my partner Philippa that she would be wearing t-shirts and shorts inside the house in the middle of the winter. That received a very sceptical response, but has now been confirmed that that in fact is what can happen when in the afternoon on a cold sunny day the internal temperature without any heating will reach 25, 26 degrees. So it's been a wonderful experience. Other people have seen the house and have liked it to the extent that there are now 6 others based on the similar principles that have been built throughout Victoria.